Hey guys, what's going on? It's Andrew from AR Media. In tonight's video, I want to review Sicario, Day of the Soldado on 4K UHD Blu-ray. Now, I missed this one in theaters, and the original Sicario was one of my favorites and is one of my favorite 4K Blu-rays overall. Anyway guys, first off, I want to be doing a giveaway for the 4K HDR digital code of this. So this redeems 4K HDR through Movies Anywhere and ports to both iTunes and to Vudu currently, so you get to watch this in all of its 4K HDR goodness. To enter, all you have to do is subscribe to the channel down below and make sure to leave a comment down below of your favorite movie of all time, or really anything interesting you think about the channel, and you'll be entered for the giveaway. So let's go over the movie briefly. Now, I went into this with high expectations because, as I said, Sicario is a favorite of mine. I really like what Denis Villeneuve did with the first, and I knew he was not returning for the second, so I did get a little bit worried about that. But I did have a good time with this. I was entertained with this, but I don't think it is nearly on the same level as the first movie. Now, not to say this is not a good thriller. I still think this is a great thriller. It will have you on the edge of your seat the entire movie, but I just do not think it is up to the level of the first one, which I thought was an absolute masterpiece. Now, this is still worth watching for sure, and as a standalone movie, I thought this was fantastic, except when comparing to Sicario, which is just a really high standard in my eyes. Now let's get to the video quality. So this is actually another comparison problem, because the original was really a reference disc through and through, and it was actually one of the first 4K discs I bought. I was super impressed when I threw it in, loved the movie, and I was just really surprised at how highly detailed the movie was and how the HDR really popped off the screen. Now, the presentation in that was a 4K digital intermediate, and what we get here in Sicario, Day of the Soldado is a 2K digital intermediate upscale to 4K. This was shot at 3.4K, digitally shot, so we get a nice clean image through and through, and what we do get here is a nice uptick in detail. You notice that right away when Josh Brolin's character comes out. You can see every little individual strand on his beard. You can see all the scruffiness to his beard, all the different facial features. Same thing with the clothing. When they pick up the Somalian guy, you can see all the wear and tear on his clothing, on his face. You could really pick up a lot of detail from this transfer, but comparing it to the original, I would say that the original was a bit of a better transfer. I'd say that the difference between the Blu-ray and the 4K was a bit bigger on the original, although this is still a great presentation as usual from Sony. Now, black levels are nothing to complain about, deep and inky throughout here, and depth is also good, separating the foreground from the background. Now, one minor complaint I have is in the beginning of chapter 5, I did notice some macro blocking, and I rewound it and kept going fast forward, really watching it. I did notice some macro blocking on the Blu-ray and the 4K, so I'm not going to really say that's a negative for the 4K, but that's definitely a negative for both, but it only happens for a couple of seconds. So let me know down below in the comments if you're experiencing that as well. Now let's get to the HDR on this disc, and that's definitely where this shines at times. When you're in the desert in the second half of the movie, this really paints a beautiful picture, and the HDR is in full effect and will really pop off your screen. You get a lot of different primary color here. You get a lot of great different shades of yellows, a lot of nuances to the color. Really good facial tones here. They have a little more tan look than the Blu-ray does, and the blue primaries from the blue is wiped out and replaced a little bit more with reds and yellows, and just gives it a nicer, punchier presentation in my opinion. Now also, the shadow detail is greatly improved in those nighttime scenes, which there are a bunch, so definitely the 4K stands out there. Now let's get to the audio presentation. So this is a Dolby Atmos mix, and nothing to complain about here. I thought this was a very good mix as usual with Sony. Nothing to really complain about with this mix. I thought this was just as good as the first. Great use of surrounds, a very dynamic mix, and good use of overhead with stuff like the helicopters and explosions. Anyway guys, I'm gonna have to say wait for a sale on this one, just because I think the asking price is a bit high for a day one pickup. I was more hoping for like the $24.99 range, but I do think this is a great movie that everyone should see and everyone should pick up. I do think if I was not comparing it to the first, I may rate it a day one pickup, but I will say that I have a little bit of a sore taste in my mouth from it, just because I'm a little bit underwhelmed. Don't get me wrong, fantastic movie, but just comparing it to the first, I really wish it was as good. Now anyway guys, let me know what you think of this review down below in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next one.